Good day everyone and welcome to my channel. My name is Cliff. I'm a gem cutter from Australia and I'm certainly glad that you can join me once again in what I think is a very interesting video. So before I go any further into the video, I should say that I am a gem cutter, but I'm a recreational gem cutter, which means that I don't facet gems commercially and I don't make a living out of cutting gems. I simply do it because I enjoy faceting gems as a hobby. So not only do I enjoy cutting gemstones, but I also enjoy teaching people how to learn how to cut a gem. And a lot of these videos come about because of a bunch of people who are my fans, and this video, probably more than any other video, is really come about because of them. These people are called my patrons and my YouTube members, and each month they contribute a little bit of their money to help support this channel in buying various tools, cutting paste, various laps, to help me make these videos, to offer content to people all over the world to learn how to cut gemstones at home. Now in this video you'll see some tools that was bought out of money that they have contributed to this channel, and these tools are very inexpensive and hopefully people at home will be able to use these tools to cut gems. So in today's video I'll be faceting and carving little bubbles into this piece of zircon which comes from mud tanks in Australia. Now mud tanks has a variety of different zircons just like these ones here. This is the more common variety, and many of these are what are called bombs, which mean they are fractured. But these zircons from mud tanks, if you can get the ones that are cutters, then they certainly make a really nice gem to facet. So where is mud tanks? Well, it's located in the Northern Territory of Australia, and it's about a couple hours sort of northeast of Alice Springs, and you'll see it highlighted here on this map. So for those people, if you want to find some nice zircons, that would be the place to go to. So assuming that you can already facet gems on your faceting machine, you will need a faceting machine. But to cut a fantasy gem, these are some of the cheap tools that I bought using the money that my fans had pledged. Now I bought this marathon free dental drill off eBay for $127 Australian, and on special I bought a Dremel stylo for $69 from Bunnings. So this is all in Aussie dollars. Also, this is some of the stuff I had, but I also had some of these burrs. Now I bought these off AliExpress. These are dental burrs. They cost $8.50 Australian. And also I had diamond paste. Now this diamond paste is not bad. You can get it off eBay. THK diamond paste in all different varieties. Now that will probably set you back about $30, and then toothpicks will cost you $3, and blue tack is about $3 also. So some of you may have noticed earlier on that the piece of zircon rough that I'm going to facet and carve into was rectangular in shape, but it had the corners cut off. So I quickly whipped up a design on GemCut Studio to suit the shape of the zircon, and also used the correct critical angles of 42 degrees on the base and 37 degrees on the crown. So we have the gem all dopped up and ready to go. Now this gem, you might have noticed, some of you who've been paying attention to my videos, that the type of glue I'm using has been different in the last couple of months. Normally I use DevCon 5-minute glue, but in the last couple of months I've been using Dexstone. Now I'm not getting paid anything by Dexstone. They're not paying me to promote this glue and sell it for them. I just think it's a great glue, and in point of fact it's a lot better than the DevCon as a 5-minute glue. It has better viscosity, but it also has zero flex in it, whilst the DevCon could flex a bit. Anyway, on to the faceting of the gem. Now with this video I'm not going to show you every aspect on how to cut a gemstone. What this video will be about, for those people who can already facet, it will be about how you can carve bubbles into gems. So that's a style of fantasy gem cutting. So part 1 of cutting the pavilion is complete using a 600 grit diamond topper lap. Now I've keyed in the dop stick into the quill. because now the dop stick needs to come out, and later on I've got to put it back into the quill to polish it. But at this stage I've mounted the dop stick into the blue tack, so that's reinforcing the entire gem whilst it's on the dop stick. So now I'll be using my dental drill to drill the bubble, just like I guess a dentist will be drilling into a tooth. And I'm actually using an old topper lap whilst I'm doing this, so in case I slip, I don't want to be drilling into my master lap. I'd rather slip into an old topper lap. So use an old lap and then mount the gem on top with blue tack or some modelling clay. Make sure you're always using water. You want to use water, and that keeps the gem from overheating and also prevents a lot more scratching whilst you're trying to carve out the bubbles. So obviously if you're using your faceting machine as the base to carve your gem on, you're using the water tank as your drip feed. So a little bit of advice for those people who wish to try this method of fantasy gem cutting. The type of glue you use is really important. Do not use a super glue. Super glue, once water gets onto it, will start to detach, and with this type of vibration going on, it's almost a certainty that the gem will detach itself off the dop. Try to use a good quality epoxy glue. So because I'm doing a fair bit of drilling and there's a little bit of vibration going on, there are times where I've got to make sure that the gem is secure by pushing the blue tack under the gem. You just don't want to be drilling into the gem with no support underneath it. So I should also add that whilst I'm drilling, I'm using optivisors so I can actually see everything close up. So I've carved the bubbles into the gem to a depth that I'm satisfied with, so the next step is to polish out the bubbles. So I'm using a Dremel stylo. I've inserted a toothpick into the drill chuck. Now the drill chuck of this Dremel, it comes with the kit and it comes with various other attachments. So now I'm dipping into a 4,500 diamond grit paste, and I'm going to start polishing the inside of the bubble. So this is the first step of many steps. So I'm starting with a coarse diamond paste to start the process. So depending on the type of gem you're cutting into and wishing to polish, and depending on the type of polish you're using, you may need to increase or decrease the speed of your Dremel. It's not a perfect art form when you're polishing gems. Each gem reacts differently to each different diamond paste. So I'm just going to speed it up a bit. Now this Dremel stylo is actually really good on the speed control. You can really amp it up to pretty high speed or even just slow it right down. So it has really good control. So as you can see, the bubbles are starting to polish out by using the 4,500 grit diamond paste, and you can also see there's some residual diamond paste left within the bubbles. Now that needs to be cleaned out of those bubbles because we're moving on to the next step, And the next step requires that we use a finer grit diamond paste to polish out those bubbles even more. So we don't want to have any contamination left within those bubbles, and we certainly don't want to have any contamination from any diamond paste that splatters around your work area. That needs to be cleaned out. So you will also need to replace every time, through every step, a new toothpick. For example, we're going to be starting with number 5, which is a 4500 grit. Replace your toothpick when you go through the stages of, say, a 7000 grit, which I'll be using next, and then I'll go up to, say, a 14000 grit, and then the final polish will be a 50000 grit. So I'm on to the what we call the 3.5 grit, which is a 7000 grit diamond paste. So this should polish out the bubbles a lot better. So we're looking for a really shiny surface within the interior of the bubble. So I've gone through the steps of polishing the inside of the bubbles by using the 4500 grit diamond paste all the way through to the 50000 grit diamond paste, and I've tried to get it as best as I can. Now this is something new to me. This is the second fantasy gem I've cut. Now the reason why I've cut internally within the bubbles is because now we need to polish the surface area of the gem, both the pavilion and the crown. But if we look closely, by cutting out the bubbles, we have some very minor chips. Those chips need to be polished out. So here you can see that I've pre-polished the entire base of the gem and the girdle outline by using a copper lap and an 8000 grit diamond powder, and that's removed those tiny little chips that you saw on the rim of the bubbles. So in this scene here, we've moved on from the pre-polish to the final polish. So this is fully done, the base of the gem, and by doing this I used a tin lap and I've used a 50000 grit diamond powder. So the crown is almost complete. It's fully polished at this stage, and as I mentioned earlier on in the video, that this video is intended for people who can already facet, but you want to learn a little bit more about fantasy gem cutting. So onto the table, and then we have the final reveal.